Family Pathfinders, a new way for communities to help welfare reform come true. To learn more, stay with us on Austin Faith Dialogue.
This is Austin Faith Dialogue, a public affairs program discussing the important crossroad of religion in life, produced by Austin Metropolitan Ministries in cooperation with KTBC TV. Austin Faith Dialogue highlights the interaction of the religious community with the social and cultural issues throughout our area. Now, today's edition of Austin Faith Dialogue.
Hello, I'm Richard Thompson of Austin Metropolitan Ministries, welcoming you to this edition of Austin Faith Dialogue. Today, our topic is Family Pathfinders. And to help us get a fix on this, let me read something from a recent issue of the Austin American-Statesman. Texas Controller John Sharp was looking for someone to run his new program to train and provide help to the civic clubs and churches that agree to each adopt a family for a year and help them get off welfare. That's what Pathfinders is about. And in order to help us appreciate it even more, we have the director of that Family Pathfinders program, Lucy Todd. Glad to have you, Lucy.
Good morning, thank you. And
to help get Pathfinders started was Sue Thornton of Texas Impact.
Good morning, Rich.
Sue, we're glad to have you here.
Thank you.
And first of all, Lucy, give us a sense of how this really does work, that civic groups, churches, the religious community can adopt families to help them get off welfare.
Okay. Well, this idea which John Sharp had is coming after his designing of the new welfare system for Texas. As most people know, we are now under a ticking clock for people who are on welfare. They have a time limit. They cannot any longer stay on welfare for an unlimited amount of time. And so we know that these families are going to need some help. We're talking about single mothers with young children. And the Texas Workforce Commission will be providing job training, skills assessment, and job placement for these families, in addition to daycare and some help with transportation. But we know that there will be many problems, many hurdles that these families have to overcome along the way to becoming self-sufficient. So the idea is that a group of committed people from a religious from a religious organization or a civic club will help the family get through these hurdles.
Okay, now let's talk about the ticking clock for a moment. That's both a state legislation and more recently a federal enactment that says that folks who are on welfare now have a certain deadline to meet in order to be self-sufficient.
That's correct. At the national level, there will be a 5-year lifetime limit for people to receive welfare, but Texas is operating under a waiver that is the result of House Bill 1863. And so in Texas, depending on your level of education and your job experience, you will be expected to get a job within perhaps 1 year. If you have a high school degree and some amount of job experience.
Oh, so you may not even have 5 years.
That's correct. For people who are beginning to receive welfare and who are funneled into the jobs program with the Texas Workforce Commission and they're job ready, they will have 1 year to become self-sufficient. And there will be a year, what's very helpful is there will be a year of transitional benefits for these families. They can continue to receive some amount of a welfare grant and Medicaid benefits even after they become employed for 1 year.
And so in order to expedite that transition, you're facilitating the process of churches, civic groups, to help any given family to make that change.
Yes, that's right. We're asking that the organization come up with a team of 3 to 8 people, and that team will be trained. We'll give them 4 hours of training so that they'll be somewhat equipped to deal with the problems that may arise with the family.
Okay, well, we need to come back to that because I'm sure that there are folks who are looking into this show today that this will intrigue them in terms of, we know that this change is going on both nationally and at a state level. And I think we all know that for this to work, you just can't depend on government sources anymore, but that everyone's going to have to pitch in one way or the other. So, Sue, why are you connected to Family Pathfinders?
Well, I see this as an idea, in a sense, to sort of reinvent community, if you will. I think many of us have become disenfranchised from those folks who maybe don't look like us or who have the same opportunities that we've been given in life. And so this is a way that we can begin to challenge ourselves, to step up to the plate, to become more involved in our communities, to make it better for everyone there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now you would say that, you know, whether you're connected to Texas Impact or not.
Yes.
As a citizen, as a person who cares. But what about in your capacity as director of Texas Impact? Why are you doing it? What is there about your organization, which is an advocacy organization?
Correct.
That is lending support for this direct help kind of service?
Well, Texas Impact and our members have long believed that, and long talked to the legislature, that helping poor people is not simply throwing more money at the problem. Certainly that is a key piece, and we're concerned that the legislature will choose in this next session to fund as fully as possible the programs that are associated with this effort. However, it takes that other component at the community level to help connect families and individuals to the services they need, to provide some stopgap measures that government can never do, and to provide just that caring, mentoring kind of atmosphere for people who may never have experienced that in their lifetime.
Okay, so I hear you saying it's both and.
Correct.
You need the advocacy, you need the legislation that provides human services support for lots and lots of people. You need the hands-on individual outreach that Family Pathfinders represents.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'd like to think about another newspaper article that was out since you started this in September of 1996. And even since that time, there has been an instance of a Catholic church here in town that did adopt a family.
Yes.
And there are changes and differences to be seen already. Can you tell us a little bit about that particular instance?
Yes, we matched a family with St. Louis Catholic Church, and they have literally been a godsend to this family. The family was being evicted from housing. It's a mother with 6 children, and the church was able to help them get established in adequate housing, which is much improved over the house where they were living, which was actually condemned. It was the beginning of school, so the church helped the family get ready for school. The mother was really incapacitated with a broken leg. And so volunteers went with the family to buy school supplies, found clothing for the children. This was just a wonderful outpouring of support, and they also helped to furnish the new house that the family moved into. And so now the mother is on the road to getting her GED, so that when she's fully rehabilitated from her broken leg, she'll be able to go back to being employed.
Okay, so that's happened just in a few weeks.
Yes.
It shows that there can be some rather quick response to someone that is ready for the help and able to participate with the helpers.
Yes, so often families that are living in poverty have emergencies that come up that really a government agency is not equipped to help out. So this is where a caring support group in the community can really make a difference.
How many are of the members at St. Louis Catholic Church are in this team effort?
They have 5 people who are working on the team.
Okay. And I think that's an interesting ratio. It would take probably at least 5 people to help one family cover these various needs.
Well, we think that the idea is that with a team of people, we'll have all kinds of skills and talents represented on that team. And the mother might need some help with writing a resume. She may have a car breakdown and need someone to guide her as to what to do. Where's a good mechanic, or where could she get some tires for her car? Because you know, many of us have support systems of people that we turn to when we have a problem like that, but people who are living in poverty sometimes have neighbors who are also living from day-to-day crisis, and their family members are kind of in the same boat.
They don't have the same support group that
That's
lots
right.
of others do.
So we think that this group from an established organization will have the kinds of contacts to help people really get going again.
Sue, as Lucy talks here, I think of, in order for welfare reform to work, either through the state or the federal changes that have occurred, you're assuming that there are jobs out there. That if you say to people, well, it's time for you to get off the dole, that they can go out and find something that's waiting there for them, or that they can get job training that will equip them for a job that's there. And if they have children, that there is some kind of child care support. Now, is all that safety net in place for folks who suddenly find themselves after 1 year or 5 years off welfare?
No, I don't think that any of us believe that it is totally. However, I think that the example that Lucy just enumerated is a beautiful description of what families used to do for many of us in the old days. And we all also know that most of the jobs that are out there are perhaps not posted somewhere with an employment service. And so by connecting people up with a new family, in essence, it provides them with resources that no governmental entity, no private concern perhaps even could provide. So it's an important linkage there.
That's the personal touch you're talking about.
Correct.
Okay, but you know, in order to, I mean, there are just massive numbers of people who are dependent upon food stamps or upon age-dependent children at this stage, and can we even begin to respond to the numbers?
Well, I think so, because in Austin, with welfare reform, there are about 960 families that will be affected in the next year.
By what?
By welfare reform, by this ticking clock.
I see.
So there'll be that's about the number that the Texas Workforce Commission will plan to help toward employment.
Okay.
And I think in Austin, there are 960 churches and civic clubs that are available to help those families. If we could just link one family with each organization, we could make a huge impact here.
I'm surprised that there are no more than 960 in it.
There are a lot more people than that on welfare, but in terms of the jobs program and the numbers that will actually be put into that ticking clock period, that's what we're looking at.
Okay.
I think, Rich, that that's an important illustration in that this is not going to be a cure-all for dealing with all poor people in Texas, but it will be a way out for those people who are able to, with some help, lift themselves out of poverty.
Okay. I think that we're soon coming up on a break here, and before we do, I'd like to be sure we get the numbers up for how people can contact you. I think we will be able to pull that up on the monitor here in just a moment. Both Family Pathfinders, which is our focus for today, and also that supportive work that Sue is connected with, Texas Impact, at those numbers that you see. And I think that when we come back, what I'd like to do is have you be thinking about a couple of questions. We see a little bit about how the mechanics of Family Pathfinders works in terms of one church, but you're out trying to find other groups. We want to see how many groups you found and how many more you need and how you're going to find those folks. And Sue, the Texas legislature is going to meet soon. I've had you on this show a couple of times before, previous legislative sessions, and what you hope can happen with the next one that would be supportive of what Family Pathfinders represents. So why don't you meditate on that just for a minute or so, and we'll be right back with Austin Faith Dialogue.
Serving Austin means serving you. That has always been the primary goal of Austin Metropolitan Ministries. We are religion in action through the work of these organizations. Each plays a key role in making the capital city a better place to live, but we can't do it alone. Do you have some spare time, talents, or any resources that you can share? If you do, please call AMM at 472-7627, because serving Austin means serving you. Hello
again. This is Rich Thompson for Austin Metropolitan Ministries, welcoming you back to this edition of Austin Faith Dialogue, where our subject is Family Pathfinders. Director of that is Lucy Todd, and supportive of that is Sue Thornton, who's on the advisory board for Pathfinders and also Director of Texas Impact. I heard recently, Lucy, that 1 out of every 4 children in the state of Texas is poor or from a poor circumstance. That's a lot of young people. And if welfare reform doesn't work, for whatever reason, those kids are going to suffer. I'm wondering if we're into a modern form of child sacrifice.
Well, I share your concern. I have been working in this area for a long time, and I firmly believe that there are some families where the caretaker is not going to be able to easily become self-sufficient, but may not have a certified disability that would excuse them from being caught up in welfare reform. I'm very concerned about those families. And I also believe that the religious community is going to be called upon to help families, and that we'll have more homeless families with children as a result of this. So I am very concerned about that.
I mean, this is high risk for the whole society. I mean, if we go into the 21st century, looking like the 19th century as far as kids on the streets and homelessness and even, you know, more of the kinds of things that we've begun to taste out recently, I mean, our whole society will be in trouble.
Well, I definitely agree with you on that point. In Family Pathfinders, we will be working with the families that are motivated, that are in the jobs program and trying to be self-sufficient. But I am concerned about other families that will have problems with drug and alcohol abuse and other barriers to employment. And we won't really be equipped to deal with that kind of serious problem in this program.
Yeah, so it's going to be limited to those who are willing and able to respond.
Yes.
Those who are not willing and able to respond. You can say, well, the adults deserve what's coming to them, but the kids are innocent.
The children are the ones who will suffer. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. I'm just offering a viewpoint on this, Sue. You're welcome to respond to it. Am I over-dramatizing the condition, or?
Not necessarily. I too share Lucy's concern. Again, as I said a little bit earlier, I think that this is a program that's not designed to be the cure-all for poverty in Texas, but it is a way to help those folks who can make a transition.
What is the cure-all?
I don't know that, in all honesty, that there is a total cure-all. I think that there is probably, speaking very realistically, a percentage of welfare families in Texas who, for various reasons, will never be able to make that transition. And I think it's the responsibility of the state, as well as the community, to figure out some way to humanely care for them. Churches have always provided some stopgap measures to stop the emergency bleeding, if you will, through emergency assistance, through food pantries, through helping families pay utility bills so the electricity doesn't get cut off. But the state still has a responsibility as part of our common good to try and humanely provide for these folks that will need their assistance perhaps for their lifetime.
Right. I have to give you a little bit of first-hand experience along this line, because I was pastor of a downtown church here for several years. And it was a common experience to have people come in wanting help with utilities or food or transportation or whatever. And we worked with Caritas. Our money went to this common source so that they could go to someone that could, you know, really work more completely with them than we could. But Caritas was always just kind of right on the edge of their resources. And I was just immediately impacted by if you depend upon 1,000 points of light, as has been described, a volunteer effort, and even if you had all the churches and all the civic groups, 900 or so in Austin, you still have numbers of people out there that are at risk and will maybe be even more at risk. So you can't take the churches off the hook to do what they can, but to expect the volunteer private side of the society to pick up that slack, I'm just wondering how realistic that is, Lucy.
No, that's certainly not realistic. There's certain basic benefits that I believe the state needs to provide. And certainly Family Pathfinders does not want in any way to suggest that we are taking the place of government services. We are supplementing the work that the Texas Workforce Commission will be doing and the Texas Department of Human Services to help these families get off welfare.
Okay, now you say Texas Workforce. Didn't that used to be called the Texas Employment Commission?
Well, the Texas Employment Commission merged with several other agencies to create this new Workforce Commission.
Well, thank you for bringing us up to date on that, or at least for bringing me up to date on it. Well, how are you faring as far as getting volunteers from civic groups? And
we've had an overwhelming response. Mr. Sharp invited church and civic leaders into Austin last June to a kind of a kickoff meeting to talk about how we were going to do this program. And we heard from over 1,000 organizations at that time. Many of them showed up at the Capitol. It was a wonderful occasion.
Really?
And
from all over the state?
From all over the state. And we had, after that, since that time, we've heard from yet another 1,000 organizations who've called us and asked for information and are interested in getting involved with this. Just last week, we passed the 100 mark. We now have 100 official sponsors who have signed up and have their teams ready to go and have a team leader ready to go. We've trained about 50 of these groups, and
now, when you train them, what do they learn to do?
Well, we do a 4-hour training, and we give an introduction to what is welfare and what is welfare reform. We try to get them somewhat sensitized to what it's like to live in poverty and what are some of the kinds of problems that they'll run into when they're working with a family. We talk to them about resources in their own local community that they can help bring to bear on problems that arise. And we do some role play so that they will know the kinds of things that they'll be able to do for the families, and can learn something about how to set goals for the family and how to relate and set up a good relationship with the family.
Okay, so people come out of your training with some skills.
Yes.
And they don't try to be everything to you be all and end all for a given and pretend that they've got all that the given family needs. They have a little contribution they can make in the process.
Yes, that's right.
Name some of the groups that have responded locally.
Well, we've trained, as I said, folks from St. Louis Catholic Church. We have the local Founders Lions Club. We've heard from all denominations, Greater Calvary Baptist Church, David Chapel Church in East Austin. We have literally churches from south, east, west, all over the place.
Okay, so...
and Round Rock, Taylor.
And the list continues to grow.
And the list continues to grow.
And you're there in your office answering the phone all day long, I guess.
We are. Our 1-800 number is answered from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. And so
Let's put the number up again. Let's actually read it out so we can get in our minds. Yeah, 1-800-355. And what is PATH? What's the number there?
7284.
Okay, 7284. And then Texas Impact, Sue, is 512-472-3903.
Yes.
Okay, and you're going to be kind of kicking into high gear pretty soon as the legislature comes back in town, is that right?
That's right. They will convene here in Austin on January the 14th.
And what is your dream for the outcome of the legislature this time at the end of 1997? What would you like to see happen in regard to human services?
Well, since we're dreaming here a bit, what I would like to see happen is that the legislature would choose to prioritize the needs of people first when they do their budget this time, which would mean that we would put some additional dollars into programs such as the jobs training program and into the child care program to provide more resources for people to actually make the transition off of welfare. Included in my dream would be that they would take some new initiatives, put some money into some new initiatives in the form of some child health measures and other kinds of things that are currently being discussed that would make this a better place for all of us to live.
So, and could it be that this clock ticking context is going to make a little different atmosphere in the legislature as far as an urgency of everybody recognizing these support systems have to be in place if the whole welfare reform is going to work? Do you think there may be more sense of urgency or more sense of, if not compassion, at least self-interest that's involved in that?
Well, I certainly hope so. I think at the very least that many of the legislators will realize that we have our own clock ticking, so to speak, because Texas has got to put a certain number of its welfare recipients to work, or at some point in time we begin to incur federal sanctions as well. So there are many, many reasons to have urgency here.
That there are federal standards that have to be met in terms of the jobs that are available?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that is kind of a, we wouldn't say a gun at the head, but an incentive to do well.
Correct.
Okay. Lucy, in the last couple of minutes we have here, for folks that are looking in, what's the main thing you'd like for them to take away from our discussion today?
Well, I hope that people will really think about their church or civic organization that they're members of and how that group could help us with this program. We need many more groups to come forward and sign up. It's a one-year commitment, and I realize that's a very serious step for an organization, but this is an opportunity to really make a difference in a family's life. I mean, really see some results. A family that has had to depend on public assistance and never quite be able to make it because that's such a little bit in Texas. And we can see that family really have their hopes and dreams come true.
Right.
To find a job and become productive members of society.
You can't get rich on welfare in Texas, is what you're saying.
You certainly can.
Okay. And there is a little logo that I think we have to show that gives your motto about new ways for communities to help welfare reform come true.
Yes.
And Sue, I think we would say for the Texas Impact that we want you to have your dream come true as far as what happens with the legislature in this next session.
We hope so.
Would like to thank you both, Lucy Todd, for your not just being here today, but for the work you're doing. Please take back to Controller Sharp our appreciation for his efforts in getting this started. Sue, thank you for being back on the show again.
Thank you, Rich. Always a pleasure.
And thank you, folks, for being with us again on Austin Faith Dialogue. We'll be back again next week. In the meantime, peace be with you all.